So after 1863, it's increasingly clear that the Union is going to win if they can continue to press their advantage. So Grant, the Union general, presses his advantage in 1864 and 1865. He really sort of pushes against the South, and he's willing to take heavy losses to keep pushing the Confederate Army. Grant attacks the Confederate Army in Virginia, at Wilderness, at Spotsylvania, at Cold Harbor. In total, Grant loses 60,000 men in 2 months, while Lee loses only 30,000 men. But the Confederate Army is much smaller and can't handle losing that many men, right? So Grant's vigilance leads him to be called the Butcher of Men, right? He lost 7,000 men in 20 minutes at Cold Harbor, right? The same amount that were lost at Pickett's Charge, right? But Grant is slowly wearing Lee down. At the same time, Sherman, the Union General Sherman, attacks the South in his march to the sea. And he captures Savannah in December of 1864. Now that's right after Abraham Lincoln wins re-election in November of 1864. So by January 1865, the Confederacy really begins to fall. The soldiers begin to desert. There's no more food. There's no more supplies. And on April 9th, 1865, the Confederacy surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. Right? The soldiers are sent with their horses, the officers with their sidearms, and the rest of the army surrenders in May. This is Robert E. Lee's letters to Jefferson Davis. So this is the Confederate general writing to the President of the Confederacy over these days in April of 1865. Right, the April 10th is the day after surrender. He says, after 4 years of arduous service, marked by unsurpassed courage and fortitude, the Army of Northern Virginia has been compelled to yield to overwhelming numbers and resources. I need not tell the brave survivors of so many hard-fought battles who have remained steadfast to the last that I have consented to the result from no distrust of them. And a couple days later he writes, the enemy was more than 5 times our numbers. If we could have forced our way one day longer, it would have been at a great sacrifice of life. At its end, I did not see how a surrender could have been avoided. We had no subsistence for man or horse and could not be gathered in this country. And then a week later, from what I had seen and learned, I believe an army cannot be organized or supported in Virginia, and as far as I know, the conditions of affairs, the country east of the Mississippi is morally and physically unable to maintain the contest unaided without any hope of ultimate success. To save useless effusion of blood, I would recommend measures be taken for suspension of hostilities and the restoration of peace. And I hope you can see sort of the emotion of these words, the sort of the tragedy that it evokes for Lee and for the Confederate soldiers. Now the Civil War ends with huge casualties, right? Almost 700,000 dead. The Union has almost 400,000 dead. The Confederacy about 300,000 dead. In comparison, World War II, Americans lost 332,000, right? So this was over twice as many Americans died in the Civil War as World War II. There were so many dead, there were so many crippled. It had a generational effect. And the question was, why? What is the legacy of this war? Now here are some comparisons of camp life. Right on the left is obviously the rebels. Right, I put it in gray, and on the right is Union. I put it in blue. So on the Confederate side, camp life is so monotonous, so much of a sameness. It is really trying to one's patience at times. This frequently accounts for the fact that soldiers grow extremely eager for a fight. They want something to relieve the dull monotony of the camp life. I am fully confident if they do come that we will lick them. If we give them a thorough licking in their present shattered condition, I think they will begin to think about giving it up. I honestly believe that the battle itself is about the least of dangers to which the soldier is exposed. Sickness is much more dangerous, caused from necessary exposure. I've now been in service 10 months and feel like a veteran. Sleeping on the ground is fun, and a bed of pine boughs better than one of feathers. The field presented a horrible appearance, and in one small spot I counted 60 dead bodies. Thank God for this victory, and may we have many more and so end the war. Food is scarce, and all that we have to eat is the cattle killed by the way. No bread or salt in the regiment, and I am most sorry, but it is all for the Union, and we do not complain. We are looking for recruits, but so far in vain. If men are not patriotic enough to volunteer to save the country, I hope a draft will be ordered. And so you can see a little bit of both drudgery, patriotism, death, discomfort on both sides, right? The life of a soldier in the North is not so different from the life of a soldier in the South, but the South just had fewer resources.